Welcome to the ICA Health and Wellness Community Podcast with Shannon Kiewitt. Shannon, thank you for accepting the invitation, and we welcome you too. Before we start the discussion with Shannon, and it's a really interesting topic or topics that we'll be talking about, let me introduce you to the audience. Shannon Kiewitt joined the President's Own United States Marine Band in January 2011. She was appointed to the bass clarinet section in March 2017. Kiewitt began her musical training on the clarinet at age 10. And Shannon attended Indiana University in Bloomington, where she earned a bachelor's degree in music performance in 1999 and a master's degree in music performance in 2001. Her instructors include Klug and Alfred Prinz of Indiana University. Prior to joining the President's Own, Shannon was a member of the United States Army Field Band in Fort Meade and the U.S. Army Training and Doctrine Command Band in Fort Monroe, Virginia. She also performed at the 1999 Belgian Clarinet Academy in Ostend, Belgium. Attended the International Orchestra Institute, Attergau in Upper Austria in 2000, and was a semi-finalist in the International Clarinet Association Young Artist Competition in 2003. Shannon joined the ICA Health and Wellness Committee in early 2023, and she's also a master trainer, which includes a certified fitness trainer, a specialist in fitness and nutrition, a behavior modification coach certification, an exercise therapy specialist, a weight management specialist, a strength and conditioning coach, a youth fitness trainer, a Klug specialist, and currently working on her yoga fundamentalist training. So Shannon, welcome to this episode.
Hey, thanks for having me.
That is a lot of certification under your belt. Before,
Yeah,
before we get to
yeah.
that, I would like to ask you, how did music came into your life, and also weight training, and how you mold the two together? Music being a very delicate thing, and weight training is a very well group like muscle building conditioning part of your life.
Yeah, both of those things have always been just a love of mine. Growing up, I played clarinet. Like you said, I started playing clarinet at age 10. Before that, I always had an interest in music, and my family picked up on it. Sitting at the piano, playing things by ear, and they picked up on it. And so, I got started in playing piano first, and then when it was time to pick an instrument in fifth grade, I chose the clarinet and never turned back from that. So, that's always been a passion of mine. And then fitness has always been a passion from an early age. I started with ballet. I started ballet when I was very young, and I've always been competitive in a healthy way. I think most musicians are. I think we have to have that kind of healthy competition. And I've always been very driven. So being on sports teams growing up was fun for me. I found it fun. That's another thing, you gotta enjoy it. So I was always involved with sports. So it's always been something that's been with me, something I've enjoyed doing, and something I identify with, and just something that is a part of my lifestyle and has always been there. And I found that the two of those things, fitness and music, really do go hand in hand with many of the things that I've done or accomplished, or that I just do on a daily basis, whether it's sitting and practicing or going to the gym. As far as how did I get into the fitness with all the certifications? So since fitness has been a passion, and like I said, I'm very competitive, I like to set some pretty lofty goals too. Say, oh, I want to do that one day. I see someone doing something, I'm like, well, I can do that. There's no reason I can't do that. I think I might want to try that. And one of the goals I set when I was in my early 20s or something, was to do like a bodybuilding competition. And when the lifestyle of a musician just really got in the way of that. Musicians, we just don't have a very consistent schedule. It's kind of hard to fit things in, which is probably something else I'll talk about when it comes to fitting in exercise. So I had to put that goal off for a while. And it wasn't until my 40s that I actually got back to that. And when I got back to that goal of bodybuilding, I really got interested in wanting to learn more about the body and how it works and the muscles and proper nutrition. And, and that just to me was like, at 40, it's never too late to start and to learn and to get better. And there's always things we can learn. And that just took off. And being someone who's in the military as well, I found a way that, being in the military and getting all these certifications was a way I could help my colleagues too, to have longevity in their careers as musicians, not just, in the military and meeting weight standards and things like that, but just having longevity and not getting injured and being able to do the job we love for as long as we can, So I just kept getting certifications and kept learning. And each time I finished a certification, I'd try to find another one that built upon that. And here I am now, have the master trainer certification, and I'm just able to really, help so many other people, but also, just have it for my own personal use and be able to help myself too. There's so much to learn about how the body works and to be aware of that and how it also correlates to what we do as musicians. So that's kind of where I ended up and where I am, and keep learning from there too.
That's great. And I think it's really good that your musical training as well as the body training, they went along and from the early age. And so one didn't hit once, let's say your conditioning training didn't hit you when you were already proficient on the clarinet, but they grew together, so they really complemented each other. One question I would like to ask you is how balancing the influence of weight training, conditioning, what effect does it have on the musical aspect of your life?
Yeah. So what you're getting at is how does like resistance training, how does it better my performance as a musician?
Absolutely.
So, first and foremost, we're humans before we were musicians. We have this body that we have to take care of. So I think it's really important as musicians that we do care for our body, because it's going to enable us to do everything we do as musicians, whether it's anything from carrying instruments to performing, standing for long periods of time. What I do in the military requires a lot of physical effort. And you could say that the physical exertion required to be a professional musician or a musician who's studying in college or what have you rivals that of an athlete, a professional athlete, what we do. And just being able to understand how the body works is going to help you be a better musician. Understanding how, what muscles are used when you're holding your particular instrument, or how you breathe. Endurance training, when you're getting tight or you're feeling pain, knowing where that's coming from and how to alleviate it. But there's just so many correlations that go along. And I've just found that my years of training and not being afraid to strength train, I think musicians are afraid to lift weights. I've never been afraid to do it. And I will also say I've never once in my career as a musician had a performance-related injury. And I play on numerous clarinets, from the contrabass to the B flat, and I'm carrying them all the time, and I'm playing them and standing when playing, and I'm marching around, and I've never had an injury. And I really am thankful for my consistency with strength training and not being fearful of it, for sure.
No, actually, there's a YouTube video that you demonstrate playing on different clarinets in the band. It's a pretty good one. So you said it's really good to know how the body functions. It obviously makes us, or have us have better choices, or make better choices for our, performance career, practice career. What is too much, and what is balance? So how do you attain balance in, let's say, if we are thinking about increasing the strength, muscle strength, or endurance, or breath, anything like we can connect to clarinet playing beneficial.
Sure. Um, if you're interested in strength training, or you really want to get into it, um, I think it's important when you're talking about too much to not just go in full force with these huge lofty goals, or go in thinking that you have to lift really heavy weights. I would I would I would relate that to when we're kind of learning our instrument, to not just play the biggest concerto and say, oh, I'm going to do this concerto in 2 weeks or something. Understand that is going to take time, and probably a lot longer than you think it's going to. So, and that's the same with clarinet. We all started at a young age, like 10, and here I am, 46 now, and there's still things I'm learning. And that is kind of the beauty of it. And that's the same thing with like strength training. So there's always something you can learn. And that's why the important thing here, when we're talking about too much, is to always start small. And I think we've all been told that, and as musicians, we tend to maybe lose patience starting small with things. We want it right away. And I think that's normally the way most people are. We want results right away. We want things to happen right away. But with weight training, it's important to start small. And when we're talking about body awareness, the biggest thing to focus on before you start picking up something heavy is proper form. Proper form with everything. And once you get...
Do you mean by form, do you mean posture?
So, okay, yeah, yes. If I'm doing a particular exercise, say, a squat or a press or something, I want to make sure I'm doing it correctly. So that doing it correctly, maybe just starting with a very light weights first, maybe even body weight, getting the form down, understanding what muscle you're using when you're doing the exercise before you start adding weight to it. Because if you start, just like with clarinet, if you try to play a piece that's harder than you can play, and most teachers would never let you play a piece that they don't think you're ready for. Just like me as a trainer, I would never have you do an exercise or lift a weight that I don't think you're ready for until you have the fundamentals down.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me circle back a little bit more. I had about 15 years of karate behind me when I was a teenager and early 20s. And out of those 15 years, I had about 6, 7 years of competitive. So 6 days a week, we did karate training about 1.5, 2 hours. And I noticed that on my clarinet playing back then, that I carried some stiffness that came naturally with doing karate and martial arts. We wonder if the same thing can happen with conditioning, muscle exercise or training.
I think so. So you said 6 days a week you were doing that, so there wasn't a whole lot of rest time in there. You had like maybe one day to rest. And I think the same is true for strength training. You've got to allow the body to rest. You've got to have some day. You can't keep working when you're sore. That's when we get stiff, and if we're not also incorporating mobility training in with strength training, that's kind of a recipe for tightness and injury too. So I would say I mean, it really depends on where you're coming from. If you're someone who has a background in some strength training, you've dabbled in it before, you might be able to do a little bit more. If you're new to it, I would say start small and look at your current lifestyle to see what you're able to incorporate. Like I said, as musicians, our schedule is the most inconsistent schedule of probably any job out there. I know with my job, it is not 9 to 5. I like to plan my workouts out for the week, but I could be called right now and say, hey, we need you at 4 a.m. tomorrow. And that's going to throw things off. So learning how to work it into a busy day is important. But I would say, if you're getting 3 workouts a week, 3 resistance training workouts a week, that's great. Even better if you're new to it, doing full body workouts. That way you ensure you're hitting all muscle groups. Even if you can't do 3, you do 1 workout, you're hitting them at least. And then, making sure we're getting movement in throughout the day. And here's a big one. We sit a lot as musicians. Not only do we sit as musicians, I'm sitting in the car a lot with my commute. So I always say, what are you doing the other 23 hours of the day when you're not working out? How much movement are you getting? And I think this is something we don't think about. Yeah. How are you standing? Mobility exercises, those types of things. That right there, being aware of your movement across the day is one of the most driving factors, I think.
That's a good thing to think about, what we do when we are not working out or we're not doing our clarinets. Absolutely. So you mentioned mobility training. Can you a little bit expand on it for those that might not be as familiar with that?
Sure, yeah, mobility. So I think this is something that, as musicians, we should incorporate daily. If you're doing strength training, you should be incorporating it, at the beginning of your workout, getting that warm up in. But just making sure that we're not stiff, because if you think about what we do as musicians, we're sitting here as clarinetists. We've got the instrument in front of us. We're actually holding resistance in front of us. And so this is creating, tension in the front. We're stretching the back. A lot of us are feeling maybe some shoulder stuff, and we're not really doing anything about it. We continue to practice. We're not doing any kind of mobility and stretching and stuff like that. So simple exercises that you can do are anything from yoga. And I know a ton of musicians right now who are saying, oh, I'm starting yoga. I'm doing yoga. And it's the beginning of the year. We're doing new things. That's great. Do that. But other things you can do at home are just having some resistance bands. I've got tons of resistance bands up on the wall, and I always have one either before my workouts doing something, or I'll just have a day where I just use resistance bands. When I was on tour with the Marine Band this past October, we had a bunch of us in the band. We did a whole program with resistance bands that included strength training and mobility. Because when you're touring, you're putting so much on your body. There's so much wear and tear on your body that using those bands was a great way to get in mobility. Anything from taking the band and doing pull aparts to up and overs and things like that, or just any kind of training you're doing with the band is a great way to encourage and help with mobility, so that you're not getting tight and weak and things like that, and setting yourself up for injury.
So pretty much having the body move in an entire range of motion, right?
Yeah.
Whatever is available for it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Perfect. So you mentioned a couple of exercises with mobility training and the stretcher band. What types of exercises musicians do and why, or should do, and why they should do those exercises?
You're talking about like resistance training exercises, anything like in the gym or things like that?
Any exercises that you can offer for clarinetists.
Sure. So I believe that there's no musician exercises. We're, like I said before, we're humans first, and we can train, our body. We don't have to train our body because we're a musician. And I think there is this fear from musicians, whether clarinetists or string players or whatever, that they can't lift weights because they're going to injure wrists or fingers or things like that. And so they totally shy away from it. And And so what ends up happening is because we're not strengthening muscle groups, we're setting ourselves up for injury. If you think about clarinet, so we have the instrument in front of us. You know, maybe our posture is bad, or we're like this, or we're getting shoulders, or we have this. We clarinetists are known for, at least I know the music that we get in the Marine Band a lot. It's a lot of fast stuff, a lot of repetition, and when you're doing a lot of repetition, hours, and this is not strengthened, you're setting yourself up for injury. So when I say there's no, or another thing is an instrument where, like flute or something, where you're going to have muscular imbalances because one area is stronger than the other. But we're afraid to lift weights. Like we're just setting ourselves up for injury. So lifting weights, there's no set exercise that a musician should do. I mean, we should be doing all the regular things like squats and deadlifts and overhead presses and lateral raises and rows and chest presses and all these main things. They're all going to help us to support our instrument, and I think the main thing with those exercise, with any exercise, is learning proper form. Like I said before, learning proper form, understanding how to do the exercise. That way, you're not going to set yourself up for failure in the gym, and you're going to become a much better musician in the long term. Like I said, there's no set exercises we should be doing. Now, with that being said, any musician, clarinet too, and this is something I talk to my students about a lot, is core training. Core training. I feel core training is that type of training where we kind of put it off. It's like something we do at the end of a workout, and we're like, oh, I don't have time, I'm not going to do it, or it's boring, kind of like scales, you know, like I don't want to do it, it's boring. But that's kind of the fundamentals. Scales are the fundamentals. Core training is going to be the fundamentals, because that's where we are using force in our bodies, where we're supporting our spine, helping with posture. So those particular exercises are definitely something important for all musicians. Anything that's going to help with core, like things like planks, dead bugs, bird dogs. I like to do hollow body holds. Anything that's working like the deep transverse abdominis, your glutes, glute bridges. Those are great exercises that you can do at home. You can do body weight. That's a fantastic place to start.
Perfect. Well, that's great. Definitely the core. When I talked to one of the Clarinet professors a couple of years ago, he agreed that doing the core training is one of the most important training for a musician or clarinetist, because it affects north and south in the body.
Everything. I mean, we're standing when we perform. We've got to have strong glutes to kind of support us when we're standing. I find a lot of folks are complaining about knee issues or ankle issues or low back issues, and that's kind of exacerbated when you have a weak core, for sure. And we sit so much. I mean, I'm sitting on a stability ball, so that's kind of helping me with to kind of help encourage me to have to sit up straight, right? I have my students, sometimes they'll do lessons sitting on the stability ball, and that's just a simple change that someone can make.
I have a ball in my music room too, so if a kid needs some help with just being flexible as they perform on the instrument, then they feel it different. Absolutely.
Yeah, and feel it too. That's important. Like being able to know. Yeah, for sure.
I wanted to. So you mentioned that colleagues, and there's many other musicians out there who experience pain or injury from performing the instruments. One thing I never had really a TMJ, a carpal tunnel. And none of those injuries I've ever had in my life, or any clarinetist injury that you can pinpoint that it's either frequent or prevalent among clarinetists. And I don't know, and I think it is because of the physical training I went through the martial arts, and all that helped my body get stronger. Did you have any injury that you've experienced in your life playing clarinet, or clarinet related injury?
Like I said at the start, I cannot remember any kind of performance or clarinet related injury that I've had. But I've also done strength training for a really long time. I really got into it when I was in college at Indiana, like really, really training hard. I've always been physically active. So like you said, like that, I feel that has helped stave off any kind of injury. I've got strong joints, wrists are healthy. I've got a good grip, fingers. The only thing I really had, was because when I went to all the low clarinets and I had to get used to having a wider hand position, then I had a little bit there. And maybe like just carrying the instruments around too, I noticed, soreness. And so I just knew what to train. But in my specific job in the Marine Band, because we do a lot of ceremonial work, we're standing for sometimes an hour or two, having like foot pain and things like that. That's not really a performance related injury, but all musicians stand and we all have to stand when we perform. So that's kind of a performance related injury as well. And that's directly just related to, good posture, good core strength,
Absolutely, thank you. I remember I was talking to the clarinet teacher of the San Francisco Conservatory, and he told me that when he ran on a daily basis, he had a lot better breath control and more endurance on clarinet or bass clarinet, doesn't matter. He just felt a lot more at ease playing the clarinet when he was not doing anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that aerobic kind of training is great for what we do when we're performing and when we're in rehearsals and things. It takes endurance to do that, especially if you're playing a wind instrument. And yes, absolutely, whether you run or jog or you're walking or doing step aerobics or whatever you like to do, that's a really important aspect to what musicians need to be doing when we're talking about a routine.
So let's a little bit talk about routine. What do you advise to those clarinetists that might not have a routine or might not have any background in either physical training or conditioning or regular exercises? What do you suggest they do? What type of exercises besides, or what sort of a training? Yoga, aerobic, weightlifting, many other topics that are available today.
Sure. So if we're talking about somebody that's just starting out, and I get these questions often, like I really, I know I need to do something. What should I do? I always encourage people to look at their current lifestyle and, what are you doing? How busy are you? How much time do you have available? What's your mindset like? What are you ready to do? Most of the time, I'm going to tell someone, just get out and walk. Just get out and move. Like first and foremost, get out and move. Get out and clear your mind. Get that movement in. You'll probably find you'll come back and be a better musician, and you're also going to have better sleep quality, less stress. Here, let's start here, because when we clear those things up, then you're going to be encouraged to do the other things like start strength training. Finding time to get to a gym unless you decide to work out at home. We've got to kind of look at our lifestyle. Like I said, as musicians, it's the most inconsistent career. We're all over the place. We can't just have a routine and say, I'm going to work out every day at 8 a.m. It just doesn't work like that. We might, as motivated as you might want to be to start. So if someone's new, I'm going to say, let's just get out and walk. Just get out and walk and let that catch on. Let it catch on. I also would say, if you're ready to dive into something more now, you want to progress from that, keep walking. Don't give up on that. Maybe set a step goal every day and just try to hit that. And then just be doing maybe 2 times a week, you're going to do full body workouts, and you're going to just start out with doing the main kind of lifts, maybe just body weight, squats, push, pull kind of thing, core work, squats, overhead presses, chest presses and rows, and some core work. Main things. Work on the form and understand that first. But it always start small. Always start small. I think a lot of folks I see lately, I see a lot of musicians getting into yoga, and I think that's fantastic. But I think along with yoga, you have to also incorporate some kind of strength. Because with yoga, we're being flexible, we're working on joints and things. But if we're not supporting that with proper muscle strength, I think that can also set you up for some injuries too. So especially when it comes with performance also.
So would you suggest having exercises on a daily basis or something that can make you mobile and flexible and just wind you down? Or let's say 2-3 times a week as a starter?
I think as a starter, get out and move, get out and walk. Be aware of that. Like that can be daily, that can be daily. Low intensity, steady state kind of walking, that can be daily. And then if you're just starting, I would say 2 times a week with your some kind of resistance training. This can be body weight, it can be bands, it could be light dumbbells, it could be the gym. 2 times a week, some type of full body workout. It does not have to be long. It just needs to be something. It just needs to be something. And then you progress. Like this is, if you're a beginner, you're going to make amazing progress and gains if you have some consistent, amazing. You just have to get started and be consistent. And then I would also definitely encourage some mobility training in there as well. And that can be just on your days that you're not strength training, you're doing some kind of yoga flow, or you're doing a little bit after your workout. But I think the important thing is, if you're just starting, start small. Learn how to incorporate it into your day. Learn how to enjoy it. These are what are going to help you find sustainability and consistency, which are 2 very important pieces of the puzzle.
I think the last time when we talked during a committee meeting, when we talked about training and personal training, I think that's what you mentioned, that most people start with lofty goals and they break in their commitment and they don't keep it up and they just abandon it. And that's the most important when you start something.
Yeah. In this time of year, I mean, we're January 2024. Everyone's like, I'm going to do all these things. And, when I'm working with my clients, we're doing this. We started this 2 months ago. We started working on habits and behaviors 2 months ago, so that when the new year started, we can hit the ball running, and we're going to stick to our routines. No trying to do too much. We're just going right into the new year and sailing through. So, try not to do too much too soon. And you can say the same thing for musician and clarinet performance. We sometimes we have all these things we want to do, and when we're playing too much, injury. Same thing with fitness. You do too much, you're setting yourself up for injury. You got to go into it slowly, and you got to have a plan.
Absolutely. So if somebody starts slow and have smaller goals in sight, what would you say? Would you say that they might see some small results, at least in the emotional aspect, or of playing and performing, practicing in a couple of days, let's say 3-4 days, or rather like 1-2 weeks?
So a couple things here. I think first thing you're going to notice is how you feel. And I think you should not overlook that. Very big on the psychological aspects of fitness, in nutrition and things like that. And that is so valuable. Like when you first start out, we as humans, we want to see the number on the scale go down right away. We want to see us getting stronger right away. It doesn't work like that. It just doesn't. It's consistency over time, whether you're doing 5 minutes a day, 2 times a week workouts, or you're doing 5 days a week workouts in 60 minutes. You got to be consistent with the plan. And but the first thing you're going to notice is how you feel. Sleep's better. you don't have as much emotional eating. You're choosing better quality foods. Your focus is better in your musical practice. These things are so important, but I feel like we tend to look over them because we're so fixated on the physical things that are going to happen from exercise. Physical things from exercise, those are going to be more like 3 months from now, if that. If that. Especially with building muscle, that's even further down the line. But like really seeing, so many people just want to see the number on the scale go down. If that's your goal, that's not going to happen really for a while. If you're also looking to build muscle at the same time, that's going to be more like a maintenance thing. So that's why I say focus on how you feel. Focus on how your clothing's fitting. All those kind of aspects. That's what you need to see first and foremost, and not to overlook that.
I think those go hand in hand. I mean, if we eat a different, like better type of food, that affects our focus, our mental concentration, and vice versa. So there's a fine line between mental and the physical body of our existence, and they affect each other very much so. What would you suggest to those clarinetists that don't look into building muscle, more like going, well, not around, answering to, let's say, a carpal tunnel, something joint related? What can he do that would help them?
Oh, well, I think if you're having like those kind of injuries, then you have to kind of look at what were you doing to create that, and most often those types of injuries are overuse injuries from how we're practicing. And then you have to also look and say, your strength training is super important to help that to not happen. We talked about that too. Like we've never had performance related injuries, and I believe it's directly related to the type of training I've done. But as far as like those types of injuries, are you saying folks that aren't interested in building muscle and they're just looking at flexibility and things like that, what they could do?
They can decrease, let's say, number of TMJ joint problems they might be facing during performance.
Well, I think in that case, if you're having that kind of injury, you can't keep working through it. You've got to incorporate rest in there. You've got to incorporate rest. And obviously you should, talk to some type of doctor about it as well. As musicians, I think you would agree that we're sometimes afraid to admit when we have injuries because we're going to lose out on a job or we're going to lose out on doing this gig or that gig. And so we just keep working through it, which exacerbates it and makes it worse. And there are things you can do to keep that from happening, but that would have had to have happened before, like the strength training, and now we found ourselves in this position where we have this injury. So now what do? And that's a difficult place for musicians to be because they don't want to admit they have the injury. They feel they can just get through with it. Doctors tend to just not understand a musician's lifestyle. And they say, here, take this or use this kind of cream or whatever. Or they'll tell them, they'll just flat out say, like, you got to take 6 weeks off. And we don't want to hear that. So I think if you're in the midst of an injury like that, you do have to take time off. You do have to kind of back off. It's the same thing with someone who's doing fitness training and they get an injury from working out too much. You have to take the time off of that too. And then when you get better and slowly get better and you're doing physical therapy, you got to understand the importance of what you need to be including in your lifestyle, the mobility training, the different types of strength training that you might want to be doing, eating better, whatever it is to make you a healthy individual so you don't have that kind of injury.
Okay. Thank you very much. I would like to ask what exercises or stretches help loosen stiff muscles for clarinetists?
Yeah, I think we as musicians, the main thing that I would hear is that shoulders, back kind of thing. So I can show you some stuff with body weight and with resistance bands. With the resistance bands, I would be doing pull aparts and up and overs. Body weight, I would be getting down on the ground, laying down on the ground prone and doing, I call them YWT raises. Really great for the shoulders and upper back. So I'll just show you those things really quick. Yeah. So I have, let's see. I tend to use, I hope you can hear me. When I'm doing, okay, when I do these kind of exercises, I use the lightest resistance band possible. So this one's very light. I want to say it's like, if it had a weight, maybe 3 pounds or something, you can get one that's smaller. And I'll do this, just pull apart, so I have the band up overhead, holding on to the band and pulling back like this. You can pull it in front or you can pull it in back. I tend to pull it in front like this. So I'm pulling down using the muscles in my back and in my shoulders. I'm opening up my chest. And I'll just do these for as many as I'm able to do. And then the next thing you can do is also holding on to the band, having some tension on it, and going up and over. Okay, and you might find when you start to do this that you can't go more than that. Okay, over time you can go up and over, and you're just using the muscles in your upper body, and you're having good posture at the same time. So I'm not doing this, good posture, just up and over, working on that flexibility and mobility in my upper back. Those are great to do before sitting down to practice your instrument. It'll be a great one to do. The other one is the YWT. Hopefully you can see me.
Yes.
You see my mat here. Okay. So laying down prone on the ground, stretching out my arms, and I'm going to lift up, create a Y, bring my elbows toward my pockets, create a W, and then send them out to the side for a T, and just repeat that process and back down, keeping a neutral spine, so I'm not looking up, just looking down at the ground. If you can't do all 3 of those, just do the T raise, back down, up and down. You can do that.
That is a really hard exercise. We used to do that in karate and yeah. And it is hard. It makes you work.
I'm not about. It's a great core exercise too. It's just for the upper body. That's one of the best ones, I would say. And something else you could do with that particular one is just put like some type of object like a cone out there and move your hands around it. So if I have cones here, I'm going up, around. You can do it that way. So you don't actually have to do the YWT. You can just go like this also, back and forth. Okay. Those are great ones to do daily. It doesn't take that long. I mean, I could just do a couple sets of that 5 minutes of my day before my practice routine or after my practice routine.
How does coaching and music go hand in hand? You mentioned that it is really inconsistent, the life of a musician, but you still manage to do that. If some of us are in the same shoes, but not as much as you, but we can still get some principles out of which or some principles out of you which you depend on or you really go by that can help us navigate our lives and all the things that we have to do on a daily basis or a weekly basis. What would you recommend?
Yeah. I mean, there's so much you can say about that. So as far as like coaching and teaching or being an athlete and being a musician, there's so many things that correlate between those two. When as musicians and athletes, we need structure. We need structure. We need routine. We have to organize. We have to plan. If you think about sitting down for your practice session, you're looking, you're saying, okay, what pieces do I need to learn? I have this much time today. What's on the agenda? What's my priority? How am I going to warm up? What is going to be the meat of what I do today? How am I going to cool down? And athletes do that same thing. They go into their workout session. I got to have my warm up. What am I working on today? what's the meat of my program, and cool down. And, that this is extremely, extremely important. It comes down to having a routine, having consistency in that routine, and enjoying it.
I think that's probably the most important out of the whole thing, that we enjoy that routine and what we do.
It's true. I mean, uh, fitness tends to be a chore for so many people, like, because they feel like, well, I have to do it. I don't like running, but I have to do it anyways. The best workout, the best fitness plan is the one you enjoy. If you like doing aerobics, then do aerobics. If you like to run, then run. If you just want to walk, walk. But the important thing is that you're just getting out there and doing it. And the same can be said for our practice. Like, we can't just practice one day and then go 3 days without doing it and then try to practice again, or saying practicing hours and hours a day every day without a rest, like, or working out you're going to have you're going to burn out or have overload. And so we have to find balance, we have to find consistency, we have to find routine, and we have to enjoy it, because that's how we're going to stick to it and find it sustainable.
Based on that, something becoming just a chore or monotonous. I remember when I did repetitive things in karate training, I really did that. I was humming the melody in my mind, and I was doing it at the beat, at the rhythm of that melody, whatever kick exercise or punch exercise I was doing. Do you have any strategy like that or similar to that you can use or you actually use in daily, that doesn't make something monotonous in your training? Or
so you were doing that training with the music because it helps you to really like it and to stick with it and all that. Yeah. To not.
Or how does it not become monotonous for you?
Oh, well, with the exercise, I just identify with it. Like, I've done it for so long, but so maybe I'll go back to when I started doing it and what made me want to do it. I think for me, it was how I felt. I was like, really, I started noticing, like, going back to saying, like, noticing how you feel. I was like, wow, this actually feel really good. And it didn't take that much effort to do. It wasn't that much of a chore. I really liked it. I also was really into a lot of fitness my whole life, so I already kind of liked it. So if I'm working maybe with a client and trying to get them to have fun with it, I do a lot of small challenges with my fitness clients, and they're not long challenges, and they're very simple. Like right now, what we have at the beginning of the year to help people to find, to help it to not be monotonous and to not be like fun, that they don't enjoy it. Right now, we're doing just a really simple, small challenge. It's called Healthy Habits Challenge. And every day I'll just put out one small little thing that takes 5 minutes, and all they have to do is check it off. And when we check it off each week, you start to build like belief in yourself. You're like, I can do this. Like, I did that little thing. And then you want to do more and you want to do more. And it builds like a snowball going down a mountain. So like the little things we're doing is like drink a glass of water before each meal. Do that, done. Today, I think it's put your phone down an hour before bedtime. So simple little things that encourage growth and make it fun. And it's a small little challenge. And there's accountability too. And when if you're talking about making it fun and not monotonous, I think accountability is a big one. Having people you can do exercise with, or do small challenges with, or meet up with, or just have someone you can text and say, hey, are you doing this workout today? Yeah, whatever. Someone you can talk to about your goals, like we did with the ICA 5K, Halloween 5K. We tried to create community and accountability with that to make it fun and encourage people to do it, and to keep doing it after. Because when we encourage other people, it's motivating to us to continue to be a positive influence on other people.
Absolutely. I think it's also a lot more fun when you do
Yeah, it's a lot more.
yeah, with someone else. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I wanted to circle back a little bit about what you said at the beginning of the podcast, and you said it's not late to start when you're 40. Why did you say that? You know, we know the body starts slowing down at age 30, and then more in 40, a lot more in the 50s. Why do you say that?
I think it's a belief. Like, I think society somehow tells us, like, oh, I'm gaining weight because I'm old, or I can't do this anymore because I'm old. Have you tried to do it? Have you tried to do anything about it? Like, so many of us complain about, oh, my knees are hurting, I'm getting old, or whatever. Yes, that might be the case, but what have you been doing leading up to that? And yes, you can make a change. So if you're finding that, maybe the last 5 years, you're not as active as you were in your 20s, and you're saying, oh, I can't do what I did in my 20s. All it takes is deciding to change, deciding you're going to do it. Like, get up and just, like I said, get out and walk. Just start with that. It's not too late. Like, you will find that just getting up and saying, I'm going to commit to this, I'm going to do a little bit each day. You're not too late to do those things. And you might also find too that if you're someone just getting started, whether it's your 40s, your 50s, or whatever, you might find that you have that you make quicker progress, quicker gains, especially when it comes to building muscle. So someone like me who's been doing this a long time, it's so much harder for me to build muscle versus someone who's hasn't done it and is getting started in their 40s, and now we're starting to build muscle. You're going to see some really significant improvements fairly quickly. But you have to tell yourself, it's not too late. I can do this. It's okay to start small and do a little bit at a time. I don't need to go and do these massive workouts at the gym or whatever. I think it's just a mindset that we've been told for so long that, I didn't do it for so long. It's too late. I missed the train. Can't get on it now. No, it's not true. You can do anything. You can do anything.
And I think my last question to you today would be, besides not having injuries in clarinet profession, how do you see yourself? Bodybuilding or conditioning or exercises have helped you. Decades of doing those things have helped you playing the clarinet or playing the clarinet professionally.
Definitely. So, especially in the job that I do, I mentioned that I'm, there's a lot of ceremonial work. I'm on my feet. I'm out on the parade deck, multiple times a week in the summer. And the hardest part of my job is standing at attention. And I'm sitting here thinking, okay, I've got 20 some years in, I want to make it to 30. When I hit 30 years of service, I'm going to be well into my 50s. Am I going to be able to do this? And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to be able to do this. I identify with this. I'm going to do this. So, while it might be difficult, my training, my consistency, my routine is going to help me get there. It's going to help me be a healthier individual so that I can function throughout the day, from carrying groceries in to, cleaning my house or whatever, and just being able to sustain what we endure as professional musicians. Because like I said, there's physical exertion involved with being a musician. And it's so important. What I've done with my life helps me to make my job as a musician easier, from not having to endure injuries, not have to worry about going through physical therapy, not having to worry about not being able to take on a job or what have you, or miss an audition, and it just comes down to taking care of our bodies. You know, we got to take care of our bodies.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, we don't think about clarinet playing as a strenuous physical exercise, but also, I learned from one of my high school science physics teacher. She said that when we hold a weight and we stand and we don't move anything, physics doesn't recognize it as an energy exertion because you are not moving, but you
Yes.
are exerting energy by doing that. So same
Well,
way.
think about holding a plank,
Yeah.
holding a plank, and that is difficult. It's difficult.
Um, Shannon Kiewitt, thank you very much for being part of this podcast episode with the ICA Health and Wellness Committee. And we're grateful that you could share so much of your coaching, personal training experience, performing, and the blend really of bodybuilding, conditioning, and the fine musicianship that you have been doing for decades. Thank you very much for that.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me. It's just a lot of fun to have these kind of conversations.
Thank you.